Our next speaker is Porter Gale. She's a social media expert and entrepreneur with 20 years of experience in marketing and advertising, and now an award-winning author with the recent release of her debut, Your Network is Your Net Worth.
All right, thank you so much. All right, thank you. I won't be sitting on the chair the entire time, but I do have a little skit, and maybe I'll call one of you on stage, so be careful, front row people. You're like, no, don't call me up. I'm Porter. It's an honor to be here, and I believe one of the presentations this morning, I should start by doing this. That means what I'm talking about is important, right? You're going to all pay attention. I'll tell you a little bit about myself before I start. I've been in marketing and advertising for about 20 years, and I worked in New York. I worked with a lot of different clients, and then the recession hit back in 2007, and I found myself unemployed. Any of you gone through job transitions like that? Any hands up? Anyone brave enough to put your hand up? A couple, right? So I had lots of pivot points in my career. What happened over time was that I started to realize the power of networks and the power of connections. And so ultimately, I wrote a book a couple years ago. It just came out June 4th called Your Network is Your Net Worth. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But during that transition point, what happened was actually a good friend of mine who's here who lives in Houston, Dana. I don't know if she's here. But when I was going through that job transition, I remember sitting on her couch eating a lot of Milk Duds. So that's what I did to get through transitions. And what I started to realize at that point specifically was that there was a lot of power in networks. So you've heard a lot today about technology and how technology is really changing the way that we're interacting in the future. But what I want you guys to think about today is the power of relationships. I've interviewed tons of people, and most people that I talk to, their careers, their job opportunities, their happiness, their blind dates, on and on and on, it's because of people in their network, right? So here I am. I had been unemployed. I tapped my network. I landed on my feet. I ended up working for Sir Richard Branson for about 4 years, and I helped him launch Virgin America. Now, how many of you have flown on Virgin America? A couple of you. It's a great airline. What happened there, even though I'm technically an introvert by background, I was forced to be constantly on the road. I was traveling all the time. I was chatting with people. And I had a very small team. We were launching with a small budget, and I said to everyone, I want you to be very open when you're traveling. I want you to meet your consumer. I want you to listen to your consumer. So I had this thing. It was the rule that if you worked in my department, you had to travel with your headphones off. So imagine this is my airplane seat. I could call Buddy up there. I see Buddy from last night. Come on up to the stage. I'm just kidding. So you're traveling on the airplane. How many of you get on the airplane and put your headset on and close off conversations? Right? Well, it's about 50-50. About 50% of people like to travel with their headset on, really closed off, not talking to people. But I told my team, I want you to be traveling with your headsets off. I want you to be thinking about all the relationships that you're investing in. What are you learning from people? And what happened was when we did this experiment, fascinating things started happening. We not only started learning about our product, but here's a gentleman that I was talking to. He was sitting next to me, and I do have a very funny video clip of him. He says, "Why are you talking to me?" And you know, people, even if you just say to them, like, "What's your name?" "My name's Porter," they're kind of like, "What's up with this girl? What does she want to know about me?" So we start chatting. He tells me that he is raised by a single dad. His dad worked at Home Depot. He wanted to have a better life for himself, and so it starts getting interesting, and I start to recognize that everybody has a story, right? Everybody has something to say, and that often we don't give them the appreciation or the time to hear about it. So Adam continued his story, and the next thing I know, we are talking about that he joined the Navy because he wanted to better his life. He was on a submarine for 76 days. I've never talked to anyone who's been on a submarine for 76 days. And he told me about the sounds of biolife, about whales under the water, and how incredible that was. And so I started becoming fascinated by these connections. So I'm traveling again. There's a gentleman that's coming down the aisle. He looks kind of scruffy. His hair is very matted, and I'm sitting in my seat. He comes and he sits down next to me, and he looked like he hadn't showered in about a week, right? He sits down and he says, oh gosh, cool airplane. There's this mood lighting. I said, well, tell me more. Why do you like the mood lighting? He said, well, it makes you feel peaceful. I said, well, I actually work for the airline. Let me tell you more about that. And he says, I know your boss. And I said, oh, you know David Cush, our CEO? And he said, no, I'm friends with Richard Branson. I just was on his island. So you can't see him here that well in the photo, but that's David de Rothschild on his boat. And this is just to show you that you never know who you're talking to, right? That today's intern is tomorrow's CEO. It's no longer a corporate ladder that we're climbing up, right? We've got the 20-year-olds who have businesses with 100 employees. So being respectful in your networking and your connecting. So David is sitting next to me and we're chatting and he starts to tell me that he is building a boat made out of recycled plastic bottles and he's sailing it from San Francisco to Australia. So, well, that's fascinating. Tell me more, tell me more. I end up bringing my daughter to see the boat. Her elementary school, she was in elementary school at the time, started doing a module on recycled bottles and plastic and climate change. So there's this ripple effect that happens when you're open to connecting. Steve Jobs, in his classic Stanford speech, it's a quote that I love of his, you can't connect the dots till you look back. I'm sure if you sit and you think about right now some of the relationships that you've had either from university or from your companies, even in events like this, you have no idea what magic can happen from the connections that you're making. And often what we're focused on is my retirement fund, am I making the right investment, am I thinking about the right deal? When if you focus on your relationships, the productivity, the career opportunities, the happiness, all of those things tend to come. So another thing that I've learned over the years that I've talked a lot about with people that I've interviewed is that networking, I'm sure, how many of you, raise your hand if you think of networking as schmoozing and negative, and you think of cold egg rolls when you think about networking? Good, about a third of you, right? The old model of networking was hand out as many business cards as you can. Get out there, hand out the business cards, go to the conferences. The new model is an inside game. It's about looking at the barriers that are holding you back. It's about seeing problems as opportunities. There's a great book out now by Malcolm Gladwell. He talks about David and Goliath, that our opportunities, or in my situation, that pivot point when I lost the job ended up being a great opportunity for me over and over again. I've talked to tons of people. Here's Lieutenant Gavin Newsom. He happens to have dyslexia. Sir Richard Branson has dyslexia, on and on and on. There are all sorts of people that have had opportunities that they've created out of their barriers because they study harder. They will try to prepare more. They'll redo their speeches over and over and over again. So when I go out to talk to colleges and I talk to students, if you want to connect, you have to take an honest look at what is holding you back. Because often, when Jason was talking about not following through and not being motivated, often we are our own worst enemies. Guy Kawasaki, who wrote the foreword of my book, I talked to him about business cards and he said, you know what, I don't even give them out anymore. And I said, well, really, why are you not giving them out? And he said, 96% of people don't follow up. It's crazy. So putting your energy into the connections is incredibly important. So after working with brands for 20 years, I've worked with companies like Coach, I worked with Virgin America, Judith Lieber, a lot of high-end brands in New York. I kept finding that time and time again, the companies with succinct missions and visions were the ones that were the most successful, right? I'm sure a lot of you are CEOs and executives. If you're focused, your company is going to be more successful. So for example, there's a rumor that Apple uses 3 core words for everything that they do: beautiful, simple, and useful, right? It's a rallying cry that the whole company, product development, marketing, everybody can rally behind it. So in the time of networking, I started thinking about, well, how come we're not doing this type of exercise for ourselves? How come we're not looking at our passions, our core attributes, and really figuring out, both online and off, what kind of reputation are we trying to build for ourselves? So I created a very simple test. It's simple for the people that have a focused mission, and it's a little bit more challenging for the people that are trying to figure out what they want to do. But it's called the funnel test, and here's an example of someone that I interviewed, Shira Lazar. She wanted to be kind of the new Katie Couric. But because the world has changed, she said, I don't want to go to a D county in South Dakota to start my career. I just want to make my own course. She started a show called What's Trending. She now has millions and millions of followers. It's a video-based web show. I talked to her and I said, tell me what your passions are. And right off the bat, she was able to say, people, storytelling, and technology. Very, very clear about what she loved. Tonality, she wanted people to see her as creative. And her passion, or her elevator speech, was to create positive change and connect the world via media and broadcasting. What I found is that people that have clear passions and a clear purpose are much more easily able to connect and have authentic relationships with people, because you can figure out, what do I want to post online? What do I want to curate? What events do I want to go to? It gives you that roadmap. Again, when Jason was up here and he was talking about showing up, just getting there, people that have the roadmap realize that miracles don't happen overnight. How many times have you given up on something because you think, I can't, I won't, I don't have the right experience? There's a book called Little Bets by Peter Sims. All it's about is that success and miracles are accumulation of small steps. It doesn't matter if you're in architecture, if you're in medicine, a lot of the innovations that people were talking about this morning, it's all small steps, but you need to know where you're going. The online and the offline, what's important for people to realize is that the degree of separation between us has shifted. So 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, have you guys heard that phrase, that game? I was horrible at it, but you're nodding your head, so I think you must be really good at it. Are you a Trivial Pursuit buff? Good at celebrity? No? Well, we are now down to 3 degrees of you. So here's a story I'm going to tell you. It's about some kids. They went to a school outside of LA. It was a charter school for lower income kids. They created a video. They sent me a video. Now, they didn't know that I actually was good friends with the mentor who was at the school. So they were 3 degrees, in essence, away from Richard Branson. I look at the video and I think, well, this is amazing. They put their creative energy in it and said, Sir Richard, will you tweet for us? We're up for a contest and we'd really like you to support the contest. Now, I know him. I've met him a dozen times, but there are 50,000 employees at Virgin Companies. But I thought, I've never asked him for a favor. I'm going to give it a go. I sent him the video, and I'm sure if these kids had asked anyone in their family if they'd ever score a meeting with Sir Richard Branson, what would the answer be? Never in a million years, right? 12 hours later, he calls. He says, Porter, it's Sir Richard. I thought it was a joke. I'm in LA. Gather up the kids, and I'll meet him at the Sunset Marquee later on this afternoon. So I'm shaking. I'm like, oh my God. So these kids didn't know that technology made them 3 degrees away from Richard Branson. So within 24 hours, they were sitting at a meeting, 6 of them, with Sir Richard, and I believe those 45 minutes changed their lives. Somebody said, what's holding you back? Why do you want to be entrepreneurs? What are you passionate about? What's amazing is that all of you in this room have the ability to create that kind of inspiration and change with people that you're working with, people in your community, and people that you could be mentoring. So looking at how technology has changed the game, how many of you are on Facebook? Good percentage. I'm actually at Facebook Wear Out right now, so if you friend me, if I don't take the friend request, don't take it personally. We now have about 150 connections that we are active with all the time because of social media. In the past, our circle of empathy, or the number of connections that we had, was 10. So the acceleration that's happened, we've moved from 6 degrees down to 3 degrees. We've moved from about 10 connections to 150. So that means that every connection, online and off, is moving faster and faster and faster. Therefore, your brand personality online and offline is magnified. For those of you that have kids, If they are posting online, that reputation is going to stay with them for the rest of their lives. For those of you that are looking for new opportunities, new careers, more and more jobs are being filled through LinkedIn referrals, internal referrals. All of the power of technology in connecting is accelerating. There's already an app. When we were hearing about cell phones and how cell phones have changed, 97% of people right now have their cell phone 3 feet from them. Anyone here not have a cell phone? Not one of you. Okay, so already connecting because of our technology. There's an app right now called Here on Biz. You could walk into an airport, and if you're linked up on Here on Biz, what's your first name in the front row? John. If John and I were connected on LinkedIn, I could walk into the airport and it could pop up and say, Porter, John is over at Pinkberry at gate number 27. Why don't you go say hi? Connecting is no longer going to be us looking for the connections. They're going to be proactively delivered to us on our devices. It's going to come to us proactively based on contextualization, based on who we're connected to, and based on our social graphs. So I was told that every presentation has to have a baby. It's not my baby, but it is a baby. But this is the future. This is accurate. How many of you have kids that are on their laptops all the time? Yep, they're using multiple devices. Wearable technology, we heard a lot about that this morning. That is already here. My daughter, the day Apple came out with the iPhone, the new one, I was at a conference, I talked to her on the phone, I said, how was school today? You know, I wanted to hear about what she had for lunch and what she was studying. She said, Mom, did you hear? And I said, what? She said, there's a new iPhone out. She's 11 years old. I said, how in the world did you figure that? She said, I saw it on CNN. I went and checked the website. I know all the features. I know all the benefits. I know which one I want. That's how kids are getting their information. The other thing that's very powerful about this is the power of the social graph. Already there are companies that are starting to understand your social connections. One good example is a company called Airbnb. Have any of you rented Airbnb right here? A couple of you. So Airbnb is basically, you can go on an app or you can go on a website. If I was coming to Houston and I wasn't staying at the Omni Hotel last night, I could have looked online to see who here is renting out a room or a house. Now, I saw you said that you were doing it. Did you happen to be renting out a room?
A room in somebody's house.
A room in somebody's house, okay. Did you see how many people you knew in common when you rented out the room?
I didn't happen to see that.
Okay, well they do.
They did insist that they look at my Facebook before I could rent their room.
Right, so they're looking at your Facebook so they can understand if you have people and friends in common. So that's going to give you more of a sense of trust. With our purchase decisions in the future, it doesn't matter what category, and it could be automotive, we're going to start to understand the dynamics between the connections. We're also going to know, after you left that Airbnb, you might have had the opportunity to rate it. That was a 4, that was a 5. What did you think about the experience? All that information. So our online profiles and our behavior is going to be tracked for everybody to see. So the power of connections is becoming more and more important as we're moving forward with technology. The moment that I knew the world had changed was this moment. This is a shot. I was still working at Virgin America. These are a lot of YouTube celebs. There's a couple of 30 Rock celebrities here too, but these are YouTube celebs. We were doing a big event to launch in-fleet Wi-Fi. Now this was just a couple years ago, in-fleet Wi-Fi, and I thought, it was revolutionary. Brandon, who's in the center, he has about 500,000 followers for every video that he posts. Do you guys know him? He does reenactment videos, hysterical reenactment videos where he takes movie shots and he just makes YouTube videos of it, right? And I said, wow, it's so nice of your dad to travel with you. He said, Porter, it's not my dad, it's my agent. So celebrities, tech celebrities, it's now being built and driven based on connections on the internet. Anybody can have influence and anyone can have power. The world has completely shifted. If you know what kind of community you want to build, what you're interested in, you can start building that online. Justine, she's probably 21. She's a tech advocate, has just about 3 million followers. She just vlogs about tech. The world has completely changed. Here's another example of it, because I talk to people in all sorts of categories. This is Vivian. She's a military mom. She happens to have a husband, Mike, who's been deployed for 6 years out of 10. And I said to her, how are you keeping your connection alive? How do you maintain kind of that commonality and that community with your family? Have any of you heard of Flat Stanley? Yeah? And did any of you lose Flat Stanley when you had to do that? It's a game that you do with your kids, usually around kindergarten. You put Flat Stanley on a toothpick and then you take pictures all over during the summer. Vivian said, we made Flat Mike. So here she is, that's Mike on a stick, on a popsicle stick. Everywhere they go, they bring a picture of Mike and the kids take photographs on their iPhone and they send it to him when he's deployed. This would not have been possible just 5 years ago. Our phone is now a megaphone. It's our document device. It's our connection. Everything has changed because of technology. A couple of last thoughts that I want you to think about that are really the secret to networking and the kind of the power of what's happening right now. Networking, if you think about it as a we economy instead of a me economy, even coming to this event. A lot of times we go to events and we think, what am I going to get out of it? What am I going to get out of it? What if you reframed the conversation and thought about, how am I going to help other people that are here? What can I give back? What can I do that's different and creative? Another big wave that's happening, a couple quick stories. Collaboration is happening in ways that it was never achieved before because of technology. Here's one quick example. This gentleman, Amit Gupta, he was diagnosed with leukemia about 2 years ago. He had the genetic background where the likelihood of him finding a bone marrow match was 1 out of 20,000. His friends did a whole social media campaign with blogging, with local events, getting people to be the match to sign up for bone marrow swabs. What happened? Within 2 months, they found 2 perfect matches for him, all because of technology. So technology and the ability to collaborate and find networks more efficiently is happening across every single industry. So lastly, what I want you to think about, my belief is that the strong connections are being formed based on passions and ideas. That if you are a producer, and obviously in economy we need producers and consumers, but to connect with people, if you are producing ideas and thoughts and having opinions and sharing your creativity, you're going to have stronger connections and you can create more change. So I leave you with this last thought. When you're thinking about your relationships and you're thinking about what's important and what drives you, I want you to think about your head, your heart, and your wallet, and what's really important and what's driving your happiness. There is tons of research that shows that people with strong networks, strong communities, tend to be happier, they tend to be healthier, and they're more resilient in times of change. So I leave you today, and if you leave with one idea, I want you to think about the power of your connections and the power of your relationships and what they mean in your life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Porter.
Yeah, thank you very much. My pleasure.
Yeah, that was wonderful. And I know about this research about being at the center of a social network makes people happier and so on. So I was thinking during your talk about the ways in which technology helps people achieve that, like the children with Sir Richard Branson. What do you see as the downside of technology in terms of establishing meaningful relationships?
Sure. There's a big downside, and so I'm actually more about quality relationships, and I encourage people to get offline as much as they can. If you're starting a relationship that's good online, maybe it's somebody that you've met on Twitter, invite them to a conference, see if there's a Skype call that's good, and that less is more in social networking, because if you're doing too much social networking, then you're not out there meeting, and there is nothing more powerful than a face-to-face meeting and actually connecting with people live.
Great. Thanks so much,
Thank you
Porter.
so much. It was
all right. Thank you.